Hi guys, and welcome back to our unit on genetics. What we're looking at today is what are DNA, or what is DNA, genes and chromosomes. So that's our focus for today's lesson. So you may have heard of the words DNA before, you may or may not know what they stand for, but it has been a huge discovery and a really big advancement in terms of science, biology, the understanding of the human body, and what causes a whole lot of these diseases that may be passed on from generation to generation. And even in the last 20 years, massive advancements have been made and has been a huge benefit to humankind. So the DNA was found to be a double helix. That's kind of like a ladder. Imagine the rungs of a ladder with two sides. And it was discovered in 1953 by James Watson and Francis Crick. Now, they weren't the only two that had been working on it, but certainly were given a lot of the credit. So they had been working together, and they used some work by a female scientist called Rosalind Franklin, and she was working somewhere else, and they used her information, and she's been relatively unknown, but they used her information that she had worked on and came up with this double helix model that we now know, and for their work they received the Nobel Prize. So looking at her work, because it is important that we recognise the work that went before, even though they were given the credit. She had been working on DNA as well, and actually found the double helix model by taking some X-ray photographs here. And below you can see one of the photographs that was of huge help to Watson and Crick, and it worked out that what they knew was DNA actually had to be in a helix shape. And it made them abandon all their other things that they had been working on. So what? What is DNA and what's it got to do with you? DNA is really responsible for the characteristics that you possess. Again, like I said in class, you might look at your brothers and sisters, and some of you may look very, very similar, and others you're thinking, have you even got the same parents? So DNA is what makes each person's characteristics, your eye colour, your skin colour, hair colour. Is it wavy? Is it curly? The way you laugh, the shape of your mouth, and so forth. All those features are due to your DNA, and those features we're going to call traits. And they are totally responsible for who you are, and it comes from your DNA. So DNA, a big word, and it means deoxyribonucleic acid. So the D, deoxyribo, sorry, N, nucleic, and A, the acid. So we have got in our nucleus, in the center of our cells, we have got 46 chromosomes. And you will have heard of chromosomes before, and they contain our genes. They contain thousands of genes on there. So we have 46 chromosomes that contain all our genes. And you get 23 of those chromosomes from your mum and 23 of those chromosomes from your dad. So we did a poll in class about whether the characteristics came from all from your mum if you're male or from your dad. You actually get half of the material from your dad and half of the material from your mum. And that happens in fertilization. So our nucleus, this part here in the center of our cell, is responsible for everything that our cell does. It knows when to divide, when the cell's too big, to reproduce, all of those things, but it's what contains our chromosomes. So our nucleus contains our DNA, and it's the makeup of who we are. So it is wound up in a tiny little ball inside our chromosomes. So we've got DNA inside our chromosomes, and on our chromosomes we've got our one chromosome is a long strand of DNA, and along that strand are our different genes. So it contains millions of different sequences along there. And as I talked about in class, if we just change one of those little letters that make up our DNA, it can make huge differences there. So what we're going to do in class is we're going to have a look at a piece of DNA. So next time you come in, we're going to be extracting some DNA from either some strawberries or bananas or something, and have a look at what that DNA looks like. So we've talked about our DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. We have talked about our chromosomes. How's our DNA? It's a long strand and DNA is in a double helix form. And then along there we have our genes. What's a gene? So when we talk about our gene, it's just a section of our DNA. So if you imagine our DNA strand going on for a long period of time, wound up into a coil within our nucleus, a gene is a section. Okay, so that is our gene there. And then there's another section, and it might be a longer bit, and that's another gene that might code for your hair color. Then there's another gene, and that might code for that crooked tooth that you have that's similar to mum or dad. Then we have another section of DNA. So this is our DNA strand, and each one of these is a different gene that we have. So DNA, double helix, deoxyribonucleic acid. They need to go into your notebooks. So our DNA molecule they've studied, and it works out that it contains, like I said, it's a lattice-like structure, and it contains a sugar phosphate backbone. So that's this bit here. It's the backbone. And it's got rungs made up of 4 different bases. Now you can see here their letters A, C, G, and T. They correspond to the name of some amino acids, G being guanine, C being cytosine, adenine, and thymine. And they always go in pairs. G always goes with C. The way I remember that is they're both very similar in the way they look. A C and a G, very easily confused, so they look similar. One's just got a hat. A and T are both very straight lines, so they always pair together. So you'll see over here, adenine always pairs up with thymine. It matches in to the thymine there. Our cytosine here matches up nicely there. They hook in together and they're a pair. It doesn't matter what order. You'll see here I've got a G here, whereas on this side I had a G. It doesn't matter where they go. So it's like they're making up words, and they're making up words that only have 4 letters. Okay, so we're making up lots of little words using only 4 letters. They can go in any different order. So you've got the same letters in your DNA as other people. The only difference is the order that they occur, which makes them look differently. Now, if they've got brown hair, they may have that same sequence for you, but there's a number of different letter combinations that can still make that brown hair. So DNA is an amazing thing, and it's amazing that these scientists have been able to work this out through all their research and so forth. So what I want you to do, heading in your book, I want you to write, not today just what is in black, but in red, but I want you to write down the heading DNA. I want you to write down what DNA stands for. So deoxyribonucleic acid. Go back further if you need to. And I also want you to write down that it is in a double helix shape. What does double helix actually mean? It's kind of like a twisted rope ladder. So imagine you had 2 strands of wool, or one of those rope ladders that you use to climb up to the top of a helicopter if you're being rescued from the water, and it's flexy. If you imagine twisting that, that's your double helix model. So copying down, so pause the video if you need to and put the heading DNA in your book, and I want you to copy down that page there for me, and there'll be some further work to follow. See you soon.